You are listening to 87.1 Caroline Radio KCGN Bakersfield. This is Aaron Richmond, host of the Aaron's Opinion podcast, a podcast for blind people where we talk about issues in the blindness community. Welcome back, listener. How are you? I'm glad you had a good week. This podcast is available basically everywhere you get the podcast, whether it's Apple or Spotify or wherever. It's also on Twitter, also Spreaker, YouTube, Facebook, and of course, we are on Patreon. So, for actually, it's quite ironic. For the second episode in a row, we're talking to someone from Australia. In this case, we're talking to Jenny Rollins. Jenny, welcome to Aaron's Opinion. How are you?
I'm very well, and thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So the first thing I would like you to get into and talk about is your life story, and if you want, how you became blind and how you got into this group and how you kind of came into this situation, or how things came, how you got to where you are today, basically. Yeah.
Sure. Okay, so my story, at the age of 3.5, I was diagnosed with juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. Back in the day when I was born, the only real treatment was cortisone. For those of you who don't know much about cortisone, it's a miracle drug and it's a really horrible drug. The only way, so literally when I was 3.5, growing up, my mum would literally have to take me out of my bed and put me in a warm bath before I could even move. I was so stiff, and my joints were all bent and cripply, like sort of cripple looking. And I was in so much pain. So she took me to the doctor and they gave me cortisone and very high doses of cortisone. And as a child, it's a lot of cortisone for a child. Then that developed into cataracts. The doctors looked at my eyes, and back then they don't do cataract surgery. They just take your lenses out, your eye lens out. So I had to wear glasses from then on. Moving forward, I kept going to the doctors, and the doctors would tell me, look, your daughter's eyes are very bad. They're very inflamed. Her left eye didn't develop properly, so on and so forth. So, I just wore glasses. They kept an eye on me and sort of, whatever. And I was born in Melbourne, and it's like a 2-hour flight from me now. It's a very cold state. My mum had severe asthma and obviously my arthritis. So my dad moved us up to Queensland, which is where I am now, and it's very warm. He moved us here for the climate. Just went on with my life, just wore glasses and things like that. Saw, all my doctors as time went on. And then I developed glaucoma. So I saw a glaucoma specialist and I had many operations. In the last operation I had, funny enough, we thought it worked, and literally overnight, just to go back a little bit, my right eye was always the dominant one. So my left eye, I couldn't really, I could see everything, but it was just like not having a lens in. So it never really worked properly. And the doctors did say back in the day that if your daughter ever lost her right eye, she's in trouble. So overnight, honestly, I just remember this. I can't remember how old I was. I think it was about 17. I had the last operation and everything was fine. And overnight, my eye just went black. So I lost my right eye overnight. Obviously, the retina had detached and they didn't get it. I don't know. And within an instant of me losing that right eye, my left eye just kicked in. It just started to work. I don't know how. I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to talk about this, but I'm a Catholic, so I believe that. So I just kept going, and my eyesight was, always legally blind, but it was pretty good. Like I could cross a major highway without any problems and things like that. As time went on, the eyesight got worse and worse and worse, and still okay. I had lenses along the way. Then I had to get proper lenses made, that because my eyes were shrinking and they just didn't fit anymore. So I had to get proper lenses, like big plastic ones. And in the end, my eyes, I had surgery about 10 I can't remember, a long time ago now, to cut some, I had a vitrectomy. So those bands that they cut, I had a lot of scar tissue. They cut those away, and that saved my eyesight for pretty much 10 years. Then my eyes just got worse. So over the years, they get a little bit worse. And then 2011, mid-year, I think, they were just getting worse every 6 months, and then every 3 weeks, 2 weeks, whatever. And then all of a sudden my eyes were just clouded over. So I had a cornea transplant, and we thought that would work. 2 days later, they said, I think the retina's detached, we're going in. It was a 2.5-hour operation. I was awake through the whole thing, and it was the most fascinating thing I've ever been through. I heard him say scissors, and he's drilling, and he's cutting, and all that sort of stuff. And they were trying to reattach the retina. Because I had so much scar tissue, however, the retina, he was cutting he was ripping holes in it because he was trying to reattach it. But they explained it to me like this. It's like chewing a piece of chewing gum, putting it on a wet tissue and trying to pull the chewing gum off. So they were ripping holes in the retina, but they thought that they'd done enough. So I went away, come back a week later for a checkup. Yep, everything's fine. And then 2 weeks later, he said, I'm so sorry. And that was July 2012. All the scar tissue plus more had grown back. And that was it. That was the last thing they could do. That was my last surgery. There was no more hope. All the surgeries I had up to that point was hope for me. When he said, I'm so sorry, all we can do now is keep your eye comfortable, well, that's it. My world collapsed. I froze. I couldn't speak. I cried all the way home, and I probably cried for 6 months. I didn't speak to anyone for 6 months. I didn't leave the house. I couldn't function. If I did anything, it was on autopilot. I just did it because I had to do it. Housework. I've never stopped doing housework. I've never stopped doing anything I did before, but it was literally on autopilot. And I don't remember doing it after I'd done it. So eventually I saw a counsellor from Guide Dogs. So over here it's a vision, place, Guide Dogs. And she obviously deals with people with vision loss, and she saved my life. So I am, and not ashamed to say I'm on antidepressants, and I'll never go back. I've learned, she taught me so many things. She taught me to grieve. I had a lot of guilt and a lot of, I'm a burden to everybody. My mind wouldn't switch off to the fact that I'm a burden to my family, and I feel guilty for putting them through this. That wasn't what they were thinking. I have an amazing support network. My husband is just amazing and a great support. But my mind was just telling me I'm a burden, and I feel so guilty because I couldn't stop crying, and I couldn't see anymore, but I could sense and feel that they're sad. And I felt bad about that. My counsellor had taught me, listen, they're not feeling this way. This is your mind telling you that they are, and you're grieving something. You need to grieve a loss here. It's not a physical loss, but it is a loss, and you need to be able to grieve that. Every feeling that you have is valid, and you have to allow yourself to feel those feelings to move forward, and you need to grieve your loss of sight. And it took probably about a year before I started to. The antidepressants made me feel a lot better. I started to think clearly again to help me deal with day-to-day life. I never stopped doing anything though. Because I think I've had sight all my life. I remember how to do things, and I've never stopped doing things like around the house, whatever I can, but I've lost my independence and somewhat my identity. So I'm a very, very, very outgoing, bubbly person, and I always will be, but I will never be 100% there because there's a part of me missing now. I can't just get up and do something just like as easily as I used to and be the life of the party the way I used to be, because there's that barrier of being blind now. But probably 95% I'm there, but there's always something, and I tell people I will never be the same again, and that's okay. That's okay, because I'm learning to accept that 5% of me is not there anymore, and that's fine. But I never stopped doing anything. I always clean my own house. and people come over and said, I can't believe how clean your house is. I'm like, well, that's because I go by feel, and I'll clean it before I think it's going to get dirty. So I keep on top of things. You know, I have the barriers every day. So I will, you know, at the beginning when I was learning to cope, I'd bump into a wall and that would set me off for like a month, and I'd be in depression for a month. A smell, or seeing my nieces and my nephews and my family, I can't see them anymore, that would set me off for a month. So I was going 3 steps forward, 2 steps back for a long time. Then it was 3 steps forward, like 1 step back. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it got easier. You know, for me, it got easier, and the dark times got less frequent. And I still get them, but instead of lasting, you know, 2 weeks, a month, it may last a couple of days. So I'm learning to cope with that. It's a hard thing to do. It's not an easy thing to do, and it's just not a quick, you just don't get over it that quickly. It's a process. And I just encourage everyone to just take your time and, you know, don't put pressure on yourself, because I was, and trust me, but me saying this, it's easier said than done, but you need to grieve. You need to go through your vision loss and the journey that you're going. As I say every time, everyone's journey is different. However, you know, like if you have a great support network, and this is coming to Facebook, I didn't join Facebook groups ever. And I thought, you know what, let me reach out. Let's see what other people are going through. Some are great, but some are critical. And it's really sad that the blind, vision impaired community are critical of each other. And I found that in a lot of groups. We're in a group now called Life Without Sight, and I have friends in here that I've never met, and they're just amazing support to me, you know, and that's why we created the group. And, you know, you need to be supported, not torn down. You know, we're going through enough as it is, you know, and you need to surround yourself with positivity, because, you know, one person can make a comment, and if you're in a vulnerable place, it'll just tear you down, you know. But I've never stopped trying to do everything that I do. You know, I'll do everything I can within my power. If I'm able to do it, I'll do it. And if someone wants me to do something, I'm not going to stop doing it. I'll do it. Like, I mean, I want to jump out of a plane. You know, I'm going to go. I went and saw the tigers at Dreamworld. I patted them. My whole life was like, that's my favorite animal. I just want to touch one. And when I did, my husband said, I said, tell me when I'm putting my hand on the tiger. And I did, and I cried, because I've always wanted to touch a tiger. So I want to swim with the dolphins. You know, I want to jump out of a plane. I'm not going to stop living my life. I won't. I love singing. The biggest thing in my life is music. Music makes me happy. And when I was in depression, I'd listen to music, and I couldn't physically speak, and I couldn't physically sing. And the minute some words came out of my mouth that I was singing, I knew I was going to be okay, because that's my inner peace. I love music, and I love singing. And that just makes me happy. And listening to music makes me happy. Being around my friends and family, I just adore that so much, you know. But I'll never stop living, and I'll never stop trying for what I want. You know, there's a lot of things that I could do more of, and that I will, but I'm just recovering from back surgery, so I can't do much now. But, you know, I'm always willing to learn new things, and it's scary. But you know what? We're blind, but we're not dead. You know, we're blind, but we're not, you know, incapable of doing something. You know, I find that every day, that I actually teach myself things every day, or I learn that, oh, wow, I can actually do that, you know, and I surprise myself. So don't ever give up on your dreams, you know, like don't ever give up on passion. It may be insurmountable at sometimes, but you'll get there if you just try, you know, like don't hold back, and don't think that you can't do it, because the world is hurtful enough with people telling you that you can't do things. But you know what? It's sad that we have to try harder to make our story heard. But, you know, we can do anything that sighted people can, period. It just takes a little bit of extra work and a little bit of extra help sometimes. but we can still do it, and never stop believing that